Hey, Minifash. It is the 2nd of January 2024, and I do still pray that you're all doing well. Came across a few things regarding Jimmy Carter, who died on the 29th, a couple days ago, that I thought people might want to have some idea of this ongoing agenda that unfortunately, virtually every president that this country's ever had is part of that agenda. The new order of the ages. That's just the way it is. And Jimmy Carter, interestingly, he was 100 years old, as you know. He was born in 1924. And what I came to find out is that was 33 years after the death of Albert Pike, who was born on the same day that Jimmy Carter died, December 29. And the whole relationship to the South and Georgia, and what Albert Pike wrote, the morals and dogma, all these various things, I just thought that was quite a coincidence worthy of mentioning. But Jimmy Carter was involved in a lot more things than just the Camp David Accords, which were just a way of buying time. And it gave him a legacy. He was the one who brought peace to the Middle East, which never happened. But he's from Plains, Georgia, and I found this very interesting, that in its origin, Plains, before it was just Plains, Georgia, was actually 3 small settlements named Lebanon, Magnolia Springs, which I haven't really looked into that yet, and Plain of Dura. Now, the Plain of Dura is exactly where Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel 3:1 put up the golden image, the 60 by 6 golden image which you had to bow and worship to when the 6 instruments were played. The Plain of Dura, the golden image. And oddly enough, in Plains, Georgia, where Jimmy Carter is from, the Plain of Dura is a golden image. A 13-foot golden peanut. Now, I know this seems a little bit out there, but you have to just think about these things. Like I told you before, there is a biblical pattern that must be followed, because the enemy, the devil, Satan, that old serpent, whatever you refer to him as, has to stay within the lines. He can't create, but he can and does mimic and mock what God has created. That's exactly what we see happening. He's taking creation and recreating it in his own image in order to separate you from God. But yeah, there's a golden image, 13 feet tall, in the Plain of Dura, Georgia. And it dawned on me as I'm looking at this, if you look at the peanut, what's inside there? There are 2 seeds in this peanut. Just food for thought. Now notice the 13 pattern here. He was the 39th president, 13 times 3. The golden image in Nebuchadnezzar's Plain of Dura is in Daniel 3:1, backwards 13. The golden peanut is 13 feet tall. Jimmy Carter, JC, numerically is 13. He ran for president in 1976. 7 and 6 are 13. During Jimmy Carter's presidency, he had to deal with the Iran hostage crisis. This is interesting. The hostages were held for 444 days. Now that was all 44 years ago. It began on 11/4, which 11/4 is 44, 11 times 4, and ended on 1/20, inauguration day of Reagan in 81. Now, Israel-Gaza hostage situation on the day Jimmy Carter died was on its 449th day. Now let's go to the Georgia Guidestones. They were erected on 3/22/1980 during Jimmy Carter's administration. Okay? The Iran hostage situation was ongoing at the same time, and the Guidestones were destroyed on 7/6, July 6, 7/6, another 13, 2022, which happens to be the literal day before Jimmy Carter's 76th, 13, wedding anniversary. He was married on 7/7, 1946. and his wife was 96 when she died. And there are 906 days between the destruction of the Georgia Guidestones and Jimmy Carter's death. Now, I'm just witnessing these patterns and sharing them with you, but even more than that, I think, is the fact that Jimmy Carter was the one who implemented the Department of Education and started National Education Day, where they every year, every president signs those papers and reestablishes that day, which points directly to the Noahides being implemented. That's just what it is. And Jimmy Carter brought that into being on October 17th, 1979. Reagan took the reins after him. Reagan, in fact, was praising the Noahide laws. The same guy that all these conservative Christians, they all think that Reagan was the greatest thing until Trump, that is. But he was very much in support of this moral, ethical education, aka the Noahides. And you should have some understanding of what the Noahides are and what it means to a believer in Jesus Christ. And lest we forget, Reagan was also the one who, at the UN, thought it would be a helpful thing if we were invaded by some alien entity that would bring the whole world together.
We often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond.
So I ask every nation that's here, everyone that's listening, consider taking the 7 Noahide laws back to the basics and apply it to real daily life.
Bless President Donald J. Trump. In this moment of prayer, we recognize our shared duty to each other and our country. May we move forward together, seeking to build a future that reflects the will of God and his values based on the 7 Noahide laws that will unite us all together.
And this all ties to the education department, which Trump is now talking about getting rid of. You notice how there's always this sleight of hand. And right as Trump is about to take office, they've already passed H.R. 690 in the House on May 1st, May Day this year, the Antisemitism Act of 2023.
It's called H.R. 6090. It just passed the House. It's basically expanding on and re-clarifying the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to outlaw anything that meets the definition of anti-Semitism as laid out by the IHRA. This definition they adopted in 2016. This bill is specific to any government institutions or any institutions that get government money, like universities. It's from the IHRA website. This is the one that was adopted in 2016. That was originally written as a non-legally binding working definition that is about to be legally binding. Here's some of those examples that they were talking about in the bill. Making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews. Right on. Let's not dehumanize. What do they mean by that? Such as, especially but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy, or of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions. Accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interest of their own nation. Claiming that the state of Israel is illegitimate. Yeah, that's illegal now. We would never want to apply double standards to Israel, obviously. But I couldn't help but notice that in the bill, there's the section at the bottom that says constitutional protection. Nothing in this act shall be construed to diminish or infringe upon any right protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Remind me again about the myth of Jews controlling the media? Or does this bill outlaw reading too? Because I've just been reading a little bit. Be careful not to go reading the wrong facts out there, because some of those are pretty anti-Semitic.
We've seen anti-Semitism on university campuses, in the public square, and in threats against Jewish citizens. This is my pledge to you. We will confront anti-Semitism. We will stamp out prejudice. We will condemn hatred. We will bear witness and we will act. As President of the United States, I will always stand with the Jewish people, and I will always stand with our great friend and partner, the State of Israel.
And this act will give power and authority for them to pull the purse strings and pressure the education system to uphold, essentially, the Noahides. They're going to legislate morality. He might get rid of the Department of Education, but I guarantee you he doesn't get rid of National Education and Sharing Day as he goes and prays at the grave of the Rebbe, praying to the dead. That's really interesting. And when that was signed in 1978, just happens to be 46 years ago. 46, Jimmy was married in 46. Donald Trump was born in 46. So was George Bush Jr., who was actually born one day before Jimmy Carter's wedding day. Ironic, isn't it? Born in 46. So was Bill Clinton, born in 46. John 2:20 that talks about 46 years in building was the temple, right? Kind of like another little signpost with Jimmy Carter dying on the same day Albert Pike was born. The new order of the ages, and it's coming to pass. The rebellion, the 13, that from America's birth, it's been a rebellious nation. They've just done it in subtlety, very subtly. So we have to be aware of those things. Okay, so, I mean, these are things that I just thought were worthy, little tidbits of information that people might be able to use. I will say this. If we get through this January 6th Insurrection Day confirmation of Congress for Trump, this upcoming inauguration, the 60th, the ritual and the oath, don't forget the oath, this will mark, in my view, the prophecy or the talisman that we see on our $1 bill. The new order of the ages will be fulfilled. The dollar will die, and the USA and many other countries will collapse, and the one world beast system will commence and deceive the world into this beast system that will be run out of Jerusalem. They're self-fulfilling their vain imaginations, their false prophecies, creating massive chaos and confusion. They're trying to front-run God's prophecy and timeline and co-opt it, what they know God is doing and about to do. Prophetically, biblically, they know the time frame. Then they'll just carry the narrative worldwide because they're all in on it through the controlled media systems. All of them. Everyone else will be squeezed out. No digital ID, no internet. Thereby deceiving the world into believing that they are the fulfillment of biblical prophecy and lead them into the ditch, deceiving them to keep their names from being written in the book of life. That's the main objective of our common enemy. And it should go without saying, we know in part and we prophesy in part, right? For now we see through a glass darkly. So abide in faith, hope, and love. That's all there is to that. God bless each and every one of you. Peace and grace to you. Many fish.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord, and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God,